She is an executive advisor for Salesforce Women's Network and is a founding member of the Conference Board's Asia Council for Gender Equity. Prior to joining Tableau, Alex was with LinkedIn, where she initially grew the APAC customer success organization, and she eventually led LinkedIn learning sales for APAC. And she has also had a strong consulting background, having worked with Cape Group and Deloitte on strategic transformation initiatives in Europe and in Asia Pacific. Alex has lived in Canada, Europe, Australia, and has been based in Singapore for the past 14 years. So now let's give our virtual round of applause to invite Alex to our session today.
And hi, Fish. Hi, everyone.
Hello, hi, Alex. So tell us a bit more of yourself besides the formal introduction that I've done.
Yeah, that was it. It's always so weird to hear about yourself. I feel a bit disembodied from it. But hi, everyone. Really great to be part of this session today. Yeah, a little bit about myself. I've been in Singapore for 14 years, but I've been in the region for close to 20. Keen traveler, but obviously not doing that at the moment. So I guess I'm traveling around my own house. Mother of 3. I'm a cat mother, and recently one of my guppies gave birth, and I seem to have 65 guppy babies that I now have to deal with. So I think this is all part of being at home and adjusting to COVID. But very, very happy to be here today because this is something I'm passionate about in terms of just data and women and how can we get more women excited about it and definitely get more champions of women within organizations.
Yes, thank you so much, Alex. I still remember one of our first conversation was about efforts in the women community and how you can be involved and how we can be involved to help bring more initiatives in the women community in the tech space especially. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for all you have done in your career to support the women in this part of the world. So if we were to look a little bit further into what you do, maybe you can share with the role.
Sure, happy to. So I look after an organization with Tableau, which you could say is very much customer facing. My team is right in there. As soon as we make that customer makes an initial purchase, my team is there. So it could be a renewals team, our customer success team, professional services or support. And I think it's a really unique team because we're so focused in terms of helping people and organizations really accelerate the value that they have with their data and the tools that they have in place. And so, I mean, my role is an interesting one because on the one hand, I'm helping organizations accelerate their time to value, but at the same time, I'm doing the same within my organization. So, the organization within APJ is about 150 people plus. And so there's a lot of analysis that I do as well. So I kind of think of myself as a creator of data, an explorer of data, and I'm also viewing it all the time. So I like to get my hands dirty. So I'm constantly learning from the people that I engage with in terms of how can I take some of those best practices or leading practices and apply them within my own organization so that I'm making the right data decisions, that I'm creating the environment that people are data literate and comfortable to do that.
That's awesome. And do you see any barriers for the women community to do what you do?
Look, it's an interesting one, and I think COVID has really shone a spotlight on this. I did a bit of research coming in here. There was an article that I came across a couple of weeks ago. I think it came from the UN, and I don't know if people have had a chance to see this, but it's really amazing in terms of some of the research that's now coming out with respect to the impact of COVID on women. And, it's
sorry to interrupt you, Alex, but I think your voice is a little softer.
Okay.
Messaging in the group.
Okay, let me see if I can pull it. Is that better?
I think so. I think
Okay.
so. I
Okay, let me try. But everyone, let me know if I talk too
But this is
quietly.
much better.
Okay, I'll shout into my microphone. So yeah, there was a really interesting piece of research that came out just a little while ago about the UN, and it talked about the impact of COVID on women and women's careers. And what's happened is actually women have been dropping out of the workforce because of the pandemic. And that's because of having to look after the elderly, people that might be ill within their family, but also children. And what we're finding is that um, representation of women in those industries that are hardest hit by COVID is huge. So there's some interesting kind of figures, and I want to throw them out there. So if you think about it, women account for 39% of the global workforce, and they're overrepresented in the three top industries that are in a decline in the global economy because of COVID. And those are accommodation, food services, wholesale, retail, and things like arts and creation and public administration. I think that's actually fascinating when we look at that. So I think there has been a definite impact, and even I'm realizing in my own life the impact that this environment has had in terms of, I can't get out to my teams that are scattered across the region. How do I create that engagement, that connectivity, and so forth? And so what we're seeing is there's this real economic disruption that's happening, particularly to women. And then you kind of compound that in terms of the space that we're working in, which is technology, STEM, data, where traditionally women have been underrepresented anyways. So you've got these kind of like, it's a perfect storm. You've got this underrepresentation happening, then you've got COVID. And it's like, how do you make yourself heard? How do we ensure that women continue to, from the school age, see this as being a viable career? And then how do we hit some of that gender disparity that's happening? So I don't want to make it seem all doom and gloom, but I definitely think there are impacts. But I think obviously because we're in the data field, there's a lot that we can learn and use that data to kind of improve women's representation in this field. So I think there have been a lot of impacts, but I think even if you think about COVID, is we're all parsing massive amounts of data at the moment, and it's really put data at the forefront. So I think this is a huge opportunity for us because now more than ever before, not only organizations, but governments, and I'd say it's become mainstream. Everyone is interested in data. So if you're in this field, if you want to get in this field, I think now is the time. I definitely do. And I think we're going to see some roles come out of it and a demand come out of it that we haven't seen before. I'm certainly finding that with organizations that I work with. They have been, I have some customers that are in, in industries that have been decimated by the pandemic in terms of, overnight, their customer base is just, it's gone because they can't travel. It's a lot of those industries that have been really hurt. But at the same time, those are the companies that are saying now is the time that I really need to understand what's happening. So they're making those investments into building a data culture, building a data literacy routine, so that everyone in the organization can get a lot smarter and future-proof their organization by understanding the trends and seeing what's happening.
Got it. Thank you so much for sharing that. So as you speak of that new opportunity from the challenges and the difficulties that we have seen, that kind of double down to what has already been heard as a woman in the tech world. What kind of opportunities and things and action plans do you recommend the workforce and the women, particularly for us to look out for, and especially those who have not been part of the tech world?
Oh gosh, where do I start? Big question. I'll try and break it down. So I think a lot of people, when they think about data, they think about those traditional roles like, data scientist, data analyst. Some of us aspire to be a chief data officer maybe one day. And those are really fast growing segments. But I think you also need to look out of the box. because the interesting thing about this field is it's changing rapidly. So, we're hearing a lot more about machine-based learning. And I don't even think we've hit the possibilities of it yet. So I think the thing about getting into this field or even being into this field, I always recommend this to people is you need to have learning agility, or you need to, another way to put it is you need to always be learning. And what I mean by that is spend time understanding what's happening in this space. Go on to LinkedIn, have a look in terms of what kind of roles are coming, or what kind of, also what people are in what kind of roles. Because what I'm finding in this space is there are so many new jobs that are coming to it. And not all of these jobs are requiring you to, have, 20 degrees in this area. I think what we're becoming more and more is we're becoming a skills-based economy rather than what I would traditionally call a degree-based economy. So it's going to become more and more about the skills that you have and how you use those skills. And the other thing I would think about is a lot of the skills that you have, if you come from maybe a job that's outside of this area, are transferable. And I don't think people think enough about that in terms of they see, particularly women, you look at, there's a lot of research to say that when we see a job description and we go, hey, I don't have, two of those skills, so therefore I'm not going to apply. And to be quite honest, you should apply because I have to admit, as an employer, if someone comes to me and they're 100% hits all the boxes, I gotta think to myself, well, what did I learn in this role? If they're already hitting all the boxes, where's the growth for them? They're going to become very bored. So I would rather someone come in with a growth mentality and say, you know what, I'm going to learn that. Or actually, I have transferable skills. And when they ask me the question about this, I'll give them an example of how I've used that skill. And that could be curiosity, or, a lot of times, even in my world, I'm dealing with data all the time. So I'm not considered a data analyst per se, but I use a lot of those skills that a data analyst would use in their job. So I think you need to think a little bit outside of the box. And to help you kind of understand that is I always recommend find someone who is in the job that you aspire to. Set up some time, get to know that person, ask them about their role. I think a lot of times people are scared to do that. And you'd be really surprised. A lot of people that are in the field want to share their knowledge. Like, this is something I love doing. It's just talking to people and saying, hey, this is what I've seen. These are the kind of skills that I look for, and having that dialogue because I want to help people progress. And you'll find that there are a lot of people out there, you can just say, hey, I'm really interested in getting into this field. Would you be interested in just spending some time with me so I can understand it a bit more? I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by the response.
Yeah, that's really, really great advice. I think it was one of the biggest important advice I've gotten. Not pressure yourself to check all the boxes on the job requirements and the specifications that they look for. And it has been tremendous to me because really understanding that transferable skill sets is important, and getting to learn more about the job is important, and just having an open mindset going into a new field. And going back to your point about reaching out to people and talk about what they have done and what could be common that a person will want to look for in their next career path and milestone. I think this is also one of the biggest thing about Data Plus Women that want to offer, to have that platform for everyone to network, to get to know each other and find out what other people have been doing. And even for anyone who is not part of the Data Plus Women group, to come join and just get to know more people, and you might be inspired and have that aspiration to move to someone's role that you may not have thought of before. And I thought that's really, really great advice, and thank you so much for sharing that.
Can I add on to that one? Just because I think that's a really important point. Networking is so important because a lot of the jobs that you'd be interested in are not necessarily advertised. And a lot of times it's through connections and building relationships with people and making an impact that you become kind of front and center for that person when the role becomes available. So don't assume that everything is being posted. A lot of times they're just roles in organizations where they're not, and it can be through referral. So I can't emphasize enough about doing the networking.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Um, so I just got some feedback about the volume. So
Okay.
maybe let's try to speak louder. I'm also getting really close to my laptop.
Okay.
I don't think anyone
I'll
can.
scream. I'll scream. Sorry, everyone.
No worries. And so now we are in 2021 in our New Year launch. What would be as a person in your own personal life, and as a woman in your woman role in your life, and also as a leader in the enterprise, how would you embrace the new year for yourself, for your family, for your team, and the woman community?
Good question. I thought long and hard about this because I think a lot of people, and I was seeing a lot of memes coming out of 2020 where everyone was saying, oh, I just can't wait. I'm so happy that year is behind me. It was horrible. I didn't kind of look at it that way. I actually came out of it feeling, sure, I've been stuck on this island that's called Singapore. I haven't seen my family that lives in Canada or in Europe in over a year. Yeah, there's been some hard things. We've had family members who've been sick. There's been a lot of things to tackle, but I think there's also been some real positivity coming out of it in terms of, I think, this is the way, this is the way we're going to go forward. And I think what I've seen happen is some of the technology that was introduced, say, even 10 years ago, there's just been such a rapid change in terms of the adoption of it. So, for example, we used to do WebEx. I mean, WebEx sessions, but I don't think I've ever done as many WebEx, Zoom, Hangouts, sessions as I have now. And it's like, I look at my son and his school did an amazing job of virtual learning. So I think it's really amazing to see how some of these technologies that have been there, we are now really advancing them because we are using them to the nth degree. And I think that's the same, like even with data, like my word, the amount of stuff that I don't think we can keep up with it in terms of the data that we're generating. So it's going to force us to think about that differently as well. Where are we going to go with data lakes? What's going to happen? Like I had mentioned before, machine-based learning. There's so many interesting stuff there, and I don't even think we're at the precipice of really testing that out. I think for me personally, it's giving me time to really think a little bit more and invest more in myself in terms of learning and the time that maybe I would have spent on a plane. I'm spending a lot more time reading and being with my family and enjoying that. But for me, it always goes back to like I'm naturally curious. I'm always learning. So I'm just learning in different ways now. And I think one of the big things for me is just finding out all the different avenues that I wasn't aware of before that now I can suddenly take advantage of that.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I think that really reminds me a lot of things that we didn't realize that would come into play for such a big part that we're using so much. And I think you're like absolutely right. Like in the past year and in the current year that we're going forward with, I think we will be using that more and more. And given that we are still still in the pandemic, even though Singapore is relatively a lot more normal, quote, compared to other countries. So I think we will have a lot of new normal that is still gonna come to us, and I think as part of the co-leading group in Data Plus Women, we will still have lots of challenges just even hosting events like this. And again, another recruiting call out. If anyone is interested, please come join us. Just a quick one there. So now going back to you, and I was maybe speaking for a lot of our audience here who may not have a personal mentor in their life. If you are their personal mentor to our audience today, they could be someone who is technical. They could be someone like you. They could be someone who is not in the data industry, right? It could be anyone.
Yep.
What would be the piece of golden advice that you would give to them in this new year?
I would say, first of all, you need more than one mentor. I think a lot of people fixate on one mentor, and I'm sorry, but not one person can't be all things to you. You really need to think about those different things that you want to learn and what you want to learn, and then look for mentors that can help you there. And I think the other thing to think about is you don't have, you may have a mentor and that role may change over time as well. So I think that that's one thing to think about is I think mentors are very important, but I think it's don't be afraid to look for different people at different times that can help you on your journey, and and reach out. And I think the other thing is I talked about that before in terms of learning agility. I always look for people who have a growth mindset. So I think that's so important, and especially in this day and age, is how do you flex that? How do you flex that in your work, but also privately as well, in terms of building your skill set? Because I really do believe that we are going to go to a skills-based economy. You see signs of that more and more so. I think in the past, maybe we spend a lot more time in formalized degrees. I think going forward, it's going to be, do you have this skill, do you have that skill? And we'll see an economy kind of based on that. And it'll be more so, I mean, look at this now. Most of us are working remotely. We're going into offices maybe once or twice. To be honest, the last time I was in my office was December, and that was to clean up my desk. With I think a lot of work is going to change. So the job economy will change, whereas before it was you were in a city, in a location, doing a specific job. I think what we might start to see a lot more, and I'm certainly seeing this on LinkedIn, is you will start to see roles that are coming out, let's say remote. So it means you can be based anywhere in the world. And I think if we go back to the skills economy thing, is that if you have a particular skill that is in high demand, it won't matter where you sit. And you will see more flexible kind of organization models come in where they bring teams of skills together to solve a certain issue. So you won't have, and you're seeing this more, it's called the adaptive organization model. I think we're going to see a lot more of that, where a company is trying to solve a certain problem. So they'll bring those skills together for a period of time, and then dissolve that again. So I think this whole nature of work is going to change a lot, and I think we all need to be prepared for it, because if you think about the change that we've experienced in the last year, some of those things I don't think are going to go away. So I think another thing I would recommend everyone do is building up your resilience to change. We talk a lot about, it's kind of been change is constant, but it is. And I think it's going to be, in some areas, it's going to be very dramatic. So I think, how do you build your resilience up? But also, for those people out there who have families, is how do you build the resilience up in your children as well and get them ready for this new way of doing things, which is why I'm so excited by things like our initiative Data Kids in Tableau. How do we get kids in school to start thinking about data, using the product, and thinking about that. So those are just some other things I would think about. But I guess my last thing was being look after yourself. What I'm realizing also is we all working very, very long hours. We're constantly online. We're constantly on these calls. I think a lot of people are forgetting about themselves, and I think that's very important for mental well-being and health, to also to make sure you have time for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess to maybe to help summarize and kind of collect my thoughts from what I've learned from you is that, number one, we really need more than one mentor. And because of this, the job economy is going to shift to very skill focused, we really need to have more agility in our learning capacity and the scope of what we are learning in our day-to-day life. And having multiple mentors is really, really important. And to some people, having coach and having mentor means differently for them. So
Mm-hmm.
really understand that and find yourself on what's important to you, and reach out to people and leverage platform like Data Plus Women. Bring your friends on here, bring your partners, bring your colleagues on here, and have use this leverage this kind of platform for your networking, for your search of mentors and coaches. And you also talk about how being resilient to change is important. And I can't I can agree with you more with that. I think the last year, even just for myself personally, I have 4 different managers in just 1 year, and
Wow.
there's so much change, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just you just have to adapt to it. You have to you just have to manage that and keep an open mindset and keep that growth mindset about change. I think that has personally helped me, and I think you you know I think you know every point, and I really appreciate that you share that with everyone, and hopefully everyone also see that coming through for them. And
Mhm.
you know, if you need more mentors, reach out to people, and I think that is really, I don't know what else to say. I think you are inspiring. You are someone I want to become. And I know I have asked you tons of questions, and I am keeping 10 minutes to anyone who has questions for you. And let me take a look at the chat box, or anyone who wants to unmute themselves, or even our guest here, Evelyn, with us. If you have any questions for Alex.
I love seeing the little chat groups going on, people thanking each other. It's amazing.
I know you can read Chinese. Let me see if that's
No, I can't, but I could get my son down to do it.
all right. All right. We have one question
Sure.
about how can we make connections to help growth.
So I'm gonna assume that we need connections to people. So I'll try and not answer that, or the person can define that. But I mean, I think in terms of connections, I mean, this is an amazing space to begin in. If I look at the amount of people that are on this call tonight, I'm sure many of you are in fascinating roles and have a lot of experience that people would love to learn from. So I think that's one space. I use LinkedIn a lot, to be honest. I don't know if this group does this as well. I look at my feed every morning. I look at what articles are coming out. I've connected with some of those people that write the articles, and started a conversation with them. I think it's a great way of connecting with people. I think there are also a lot of other forums out there. I always recommend to people to be part of our greater community. I love our community because it is so open, inclusive, and you can learn so much from it. In terms of people having challenges and just putting them out there, and people connecting and wanting to be helpful. So I think there are a lot of avenues, but I think what probably holds people back, and I just saw one of the things about cold messaging, is probably things like that. Is like, if I have to message somebody and I don't have a connection with them, are they going to actually reply back? I think it all depends on how you message it. Like when I do it, I introduce myself. I make sure that the tone is very, it doesn't sound like I'm asking for a job. I think that's the biggest thing that turns people off, if they think you're just kind of connecting with them because you want to explore job opportunities. I usually mention, look, I've read your article. I thought this was really fascinating. Bring up a point about it. You start the dialogue. So I think it's all in how you, when you cold message somebody, what you put in there about why you're messaging them. Like, I find your profile fascinating. I have been, I had someone that wrote to me recently saying, I've been in this space for many years. I took time out of my career. I'm now getting back. I noticed you did the same because this person had heard me speak at another event, and I talked about taking a career break. And they said, I'd really love to know how you re-entered the workforce. When someone writes me something like that, I'm compelled to respond. So, don't be put off if the person doesn't write back right away. Maybe write to someone else, but keep doing it, because I think today it's all about connectivity. And like I said, use this group, go into the Tableau community, use LinkedIn, use other forums, and just reach out to people, because I think a lot of people want to have that dialogue, especially today when we're constrained by working from home, and that human contact is limited.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I were to do a short practice with you, let's say text you on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, Alex, I learned about you from, let's say, an article, let's say a friend," and then I say, number two in my second sentence, "Hey, I'm really interested to talk to you about this topic. Do you have 30 minutes with me on this date?" Would you reply to that?
That's probably I would start with an opener. I would probably go in and say, I've read your article. I'm really interested in more about this, and then I would say why. Because I'm interested in going into this career, or it's something that you're currently doing. And then
Yeah,
I would end that by saying, would you be open to a discussion? And then let the person respond, and then
mm,
start the dialogue. And then maybe the first thing is still kind of, through messaging or an email, but then work to the point of actually having the conversation. I
yeah.
think you kind of like most things, you kind of like have to soften it, build the relationship, and then go in for would you like to talk on this date?
All right, guys, learn from mistake, right? Do an opener, tell the person why you want to talk to her, and let's see what the response is, right? Learn from my
Yep.
mistake.
I
And there is a second question, and I
Sure.
think about how do you message people in a more tactful way. I think I gave the best example. Don't do what I did. All right, I think we have another question. How would remote working, okay, no, how remote working is helping or changing Tableau on its product and people?
So how is remote working out? Wow, that's a big one because I can answer that in a lot of ways. I can take that from a product perspective or a company perspective. I'll take it from a company perspective, and then maybe Tanu, you can help me in terms of the product that I'll put you on the spot. Um, so I think from a company perspective, what I've learned remote working is, and remember I work across Asia, is some of the customers in some of the countries that we work with weren't ready for this. And, they were just kind of shocked. Like, what do you mean you can't meet me in person? What do you mean you can't come and visit me? And I think there was a lot of fatigue because a lot of the companies that I work with and people were just like, they weren't used to this way of working. So I and my team started really thinking about, email wasn't working. So some because people were getting flooded with emails, they were also getting flooded with, a request for virtual meetings. So we had to really think about how do we build connectivity and connection with our customers and our greater community without making them feel like it's just too much. So sometimes that was, depending on the market, it was a WeChat message or a WhatsApp. Sometimes it was just a short phone call, especially if you had a close connection, that was to say, and start the conversation with saying, how are you? Don't jump right into the business conversation, the technical question, but, how are you? How are you doing? And it was amazing. Some of these people I thought were very restrained, were very open in terms of, they were really struggling personally to adapt to this remote environment and remote working. And, I think for a lot of people, it really pushed them in terms of that resiliency I talked about. So there was a lot that we did there in terms of, how do we connect in this new way? And, it was interesting when some of the markets opened up, the first thing, was like, get out and go see this person and do that. But then now again, we're back in this, it's hard. So I think I think that tested us as well. I have some teams that are used to being 100% on site with a customer, and that was very hard. How do we suddenly go from delivering training face to face in some countries where that's all they're used to saying, hey, we're going to use Zoom or WebEx, and we had to adapt everything. So, for the product side, we actually had to adapt very quickly and start thinking about like, hey, in Japan, they don't use WebEx. We had to think about something else. So how do we deliver it? We also had to think about some of the customers we couldn't get to in terms of maybe they have server challenges and that. How do we deliver this remotely? Or are there ways around it? And how do we actually even get permission to be able to go and see them? So I don't know if it necessarily has changed our product so much in the short term. It's probably accelerated some of the things that we were thinking about adding to the product. because the demand is there. But I think what's also happened is it's probably really challenged the way that we go to market and the way that we interact with our customers and communities. And I think, you've seen a lot of things that have come out of that. I mean, we're very much about data for good. So, there was a whole COVID response that we did. So a lot there. Hey, Tanu, anything you want to add on the product side that you've seen maybe has been challenging?
You've covered most of the bases, and I think every time you said something, I was like, oh yes, that too. Oh yes, that too. So I'm gonna try recapping, but I think one of the things that you mentioned was definitely some things which we were so used to doing in person, starting with things like this, which was these community events. I think from a more commercial side, we were used to doing a lot of the workshops in person, or our biggest event, which is Tableau Conference. For some of you, you may have followed it before. It's essentially an annual conference held in Vegas every year. Fish and I got lucky enough to attend it last year. I think, Alex, you'd attended it too. So
Yep.
That to be converted completely virtual was, these kind of things were it was very hard to envision how we would get that energy virtually. But I think what it allowed, and I was quite impressed by the way, especially conference was executed, was it brought a lot of things surprisingly more personal, because suddenly you got to see a lot of the people's not only, and I think overall at work you get to see the family behind whoever you're talking to. I think, Alex, we just saw your cat, so you get to see.
Yeah, my son just came too.
And your son's around there.
He's behind me.
Oh, I think he's blurred because of the virtual background, but that's what I mean. Like, you get to see a lot more than just the work person, and I think that's been a little interesting to me. And I think in Tableau Conference they did that as well. We saw a bunch of pictures of people with the person they're working with. So those were like, I think, things we wouldn't assume virtual could help us with, but it did. And I think definitely with the product, like you said, we were used to help with like COVID analysis across countries, which was pretty heartening. It definitely it made me way more proud of Tableau than I've ever been. I've always loved it, but this did definitely make me more proud, because we are suddenly getting used by testing institutes. There's a vaccine developer based out of my home city. I don't know if anyone from here is from the city called Pune. It's very small. Actually, it's not very small. We're 3 million people. It's relatively small. But there's a vaccine developer there that's the biggest one for AstraZeneca. And they got in touch with us the other day of using Tableau to cope with that. So that's I think, the power that you get to work with sometimes in terms of the power of the product. And I think that's pretty heartening, and we feel proud of it then, especially.
Definitely.
Yep.
Thank you both. I also have one more question in the room. Evelyn, who's also from LinkedIn.
Hi, yes, thanks Alex for your sharing today. I have a question on like what advice do you have for women who are looking to break into management or like leadership positions?
Ooh, do it. What's stopping you? That's what I would say is, I think most of the time, the only thing that's really holding us back is ourselves, to be quite honest. And I think, I think you mentioned you're doing the Lean circles. In Salesforce, we also do I Am Remarkable. And I think that is an amazing session to do. If you get a chance, just look up I Am Remarkable and go and do it. And it's about building the confidence in yourself and your accomplishments. I think for anyone who wants to go into leadership is think about how in your present role and what you're doing that you can already exhibit those characteristics that are looking for, and find opportunities to coach others. When I have someone on my team that, wants to go down that path, I always say, what about all these new starters that you have? How can you buddy with them? And through that, start to show me how you have those leadership characteristics. So I would really say if that is where you want to go and that's where it gives you energy, go for it. But I would also caution, I think a lot of people think that there's this career path that means you go from being a specialist in your field to management. And I actually think, I always talk about this jungle gym, and this idea that your career path doesn't always have to be linear. And so I think there's a lot of value for some people to foregoing the manager path and going out that specialist path where they seem like an expert in their field and they maybe don't have people accountability. So I think, if you're excited by mentoring people and developing people, and that gives you strength and energy, and go down that management path, and think about the opportunities within your own role, and a lot of times, being promoted is you're already displaying those characteristics that they're expecting at the next level. So how do you start to show those to your manager and leadership team? But I would say just go for it if that's the path that you want to take. Don't yourself you will hold yourself back, not other people.
Thank you so much, Alex. So we are at 8:30, and we would like to do what Tanu has came up with, the Zoom fee. So if everyone was able to, turn on your camera, and we can do our virtual photo together. And I will also put the slides on the next and the last one for our event in the next month so that you can join us. Okay, and I'm going to rely on Tanu. You able to do the
Oh, it's so
Oh
great to see
no,
everybody.
it's such a hard task, but I will try. I will
okay.
try.
All right,
Um,
for everyone to turn on the camera.
yeah, but I'm gonna need people to freeze their smiles for a while, okay? Because it takes a while to make sure I get everybody in.
Okay, it's okay. You still have time. We're still waiting for the cameras.
Oh, I see Edwin. I see Jayashree. Jayashree's our co-leader.
Hi, Jayshree.
I see
Hi, New.
Legion. Actually, I don't see Legion yet, but I see Legion's name. I see Suling. They both were in our earlier events. Hello.
Hi, Ruby. Long time no see.
Ruby was the next Tableau intern.
Hi,
Okay.
Lucy.
I think we have most people. I can start taking a picture now. Give
Okay.
me a
I
second.
see
Let me
someone
just.
who's ready to freeze, and I will be ready too.
Okay, I will give you a cue.
Uh-huh.
In 3, 2. Okay, now I'm gonna start.
What is
3, 3, 2, 1. Smile. Okay, that's the first round. Smiling. I need to just get this out. One sec.
yes? Technical difficulties from the expert.
Okay. Let me go to the next slide. Continue smiling.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're all good. I mean, you can continue smiling if you want, but we're good for the photo.
You sure?
Yeah.
I'm freeze. Okay. Okay. Just kidding.
Okay,
Okay.
I think we're good.
Thank you. And let's see. You're all good, right?
Yes, yes. So many beautiful faces. Thank you.
Yay! Great. Thank you, Alex. Thank you so much. You have been an inspiration for all of us.
Thanks for having me. Great to be a part of this.
Yes. We look forward to have you in our next session if you're available. And now I'm on the slide for our February series that will be led by our new colleague Jayshree. We will have our series analytics on Tableau, and she will be sharing tons of things. And as usual, I will be putting up the face-to-face sign up. I think this month it was a bit confusing. Like, are you meeting on the day itself? How you guys gonna do this? So what I'm trying to do first, and if you have better suggestion, please let me know, right? So once you sign up on the Google form, right, I will try to group everyone who selected the same section on the map, right? And then for those who are in the group, you can figure out amongst yourself where you would like to meet up, right? And then you may be meeting up earlier than 7 p.m. to have dinner, and then you can enjoy the session together somewhere. or you can select another day that you guys want to meet up and network, right? So look forward to see you in the next session. Bring a friend, bring a colleague, bring a partner, whoever is interested, and I look forward to catch up with everyone in the next month. See ya.
Bye bye.
Bye.